Thank you for tuning in. And this is News for Life. And I'm your host tonight. And this is the first of a Thursday night broadcast that we're doing. And it looks like everything is going good here. So we've got sound, and we have a program for you tonight. And tonight's program, we will be discussing the news. And News for Life is a program which I like to focus on news that covers things that you normally don't find in the mainstream news, and certainly not even in some of the, conservative talk show news that you would find out there. As I have sort of my own personal views on things, and I try to dig and find out and get to the bottom of things. I always like to ask a lot of questions, and so we are now doing this live on YouTube. So you can actually click a link and you can follow us on there as well, or watch it in replay. And so what I like to do is to find out what's really going on in the news, and then I ask questions myself and find out, the news in between the news. And like I've often said, is that sometimes the news is driven by bad news, and that really gets very boring, and I like to just turn it off, because it's just always the same old thing again. I don't like that. So what I like to do is, we do have to cover some bad news, and we can also then use that as good points as to what we can pray for, and also that there's some good news out there that isn't always being talked about. And then, like we've noticed for the last month, everything was Kavanaugh. And I don't know about you, but I would be flicking through. I like listening to talk show, and I would flick through one after the other, and I would just turn them off. I'd listen to them, and I'd say, "Oh man, that's talking about." Okay, good. So you can also listen through YouTube, which I just did mention, and there should be a link on the Messianic Lamb Radio website. And this is something new where you can then actually see me. I've got, with YouTube, you can actually see what's going on, and I can post up some PowerPoint so you can see some of the things I'm talking about. So this is a bit new for me, so I'm just getting familiar with this. Mark has been doing it a few times now, and it's been working really well. And it just gives us a better edge and a little more modern approach to the radio station, as more people can access it on different mediums rather than just listening to the audio. And so we're doing it on a bit of a new approach. So feel free to go to Messianic Lamb Radio website and look up there for the YouTube channel, or just go to YouTube and pull it up there, and you should be able to subscribe. And then also there's a little bell next to where you subscribe, and you got to click on that bell, because that will remind you when we come on with a live show like this. So if you like to listen to live shows, then you want to put that, you want to click that little bell there when you subscribe. And as soon as we come on live, you'll get a notice on your phone or on your computer, and you'll be able to follow along with us with the live program. So, so he's just promoted it through Facebook, Mark has. So that's good too. We're getting the word out. So word will get out so people can follow us, and more people can tune in to the YouTube version of the radio broadcast. So what's happening this week? Well, that's a really good question. And where have we been the last few weeks? Well, there was Sukkot. So there was a few days that people were taking some time off and enjoying fellowship together, and meeting with other people. Like 3 times a year, we need to come together, especially make an effort to come together and have fellowship with one another and celebrate all the good things that God has given us. And so that is something that most people love to look forward to, especially the Feast of Tabernacles. If you can get away to a campsite and meet with 100 or 2 or 3, 400 people, that is just awesome. I've been to quite a few myself. I've been to some in Texas, Alabama. Let me see, South Carolina, of course, and North Carolina, and Florida. Also, what is it? The Ozarks. So Seasons of Our Joy and places like that, where they have like over 1,000 people, and sometimes there's only like 60 or 70 people. So it all has quite a unique feel to it. And if you can ever make an effort, some people just like to copy what a lot of Jews do in Israel, and they'll have a condo in Jerusalem, and on their back porch, they will set themselves up a little tabernacle, a little bit of a lean-to, and that will be their tabernacle for the Feast of Tabernacles. Well, I like to think that we should be able to get together uniquely together specifically. What the scripture actually says, if it's too far for you to travel, he said, then you can actually say, like, if you wanted to, celebrate with sheep and cows and everything, he said, is rather than taking them all that way, you can just sell them in the town and then take the money and then go to Jerusalem and then buy whatever you needed to celebrate with your entire family, your servants and everything. And also with the priest, you'd share it with the priest as well. So that was always something that they all look forward to. But it was a trip. They actually made a trip to Jerusalem, and you would get a big influx of hundreds of thousands of people that would come to Jerusalem these 3 times a year. You have Passover in the first month of the year, and then you have Shavuot, which is also known as Feast of Pentecost, meaning 5, because you're counting off 5 weeks. So they count 49 days, and then you add 1, and then you come to the first day of the week, and that is Shavuot. And so that's all there in Acts as well. So so that is quite exciting. If you've done it for years, I've done my first Sukkot that I went to was the Feast of Tabernacles in Jerusalem in 1992, and that was quite exciting. I've never been to one before that, so then I go to that one, and that was my first experience. And it goes not just for a weekend, but it goes for 8 days, and so it's quite different to most. You go to a conference or something for a day or two, that's one thing, but then you go to this, and it goes day after day for a whole week. And then you take your children along, and you take your family along, and you have a wonderful time. So if you've had a chance to gather together with others, that would be awesome. If you could do that every year. Some people they for work reasons and whatnot, they can't get away, and so that so maybe if you can't do it this year, maybe you can do it next year. But it's always good to make an effort. You don't have to take a whole week off. There's only the 2 Sabbaths that you need to rest on, and then for the rest, you're allowed to work. So if you can work from your campground, just take your laptop with you, do some work, and at night you can fellowship with all these friends that are also camping out with you in their tents and RVs and everything. So that's quite an interesting and fun time with the kids. You can have like some fun nights. My daughter actually was encouraged to do a comedian type of a skit, and she's 14 years old, and she's never done one before, so she was really nervous, and with a really straight face because she was so nervous. She just had written down a few things, and everybody really liked it. So I can't quite remember some of the things that she said, but it actually, she really did enjoy it. She was really nervous. You don't really enjoy it that much when you're doing it, but I think looking back on it, and everybody encouraged her, what a good job she did. She really enjoyed it. And I had a few months ago, there's this comedian that is on YouTube, and I had sat down with them and my son, he's 12 years old, and we watched him explain what a comedian needs to do to get people to laugh. So have you thought about that? Does anyone out there know how to make people laugh, or what's the ingredients to a good joke? Because if you don't know that, it's going to be pretty hard for you to be able to make people laugh. Well, he kind of really put it in a very succinct way, and that is this: is that if you're going to say something funny, it has to be benign in the sense that, say if somebody falls down the stairs uh, and dies, well, that's not benign. But say if he bounces up and everything's okay, well, that is benign. So it's an unexpected thing that is benign. So that's what he was saying, is you want to keep that as your main ingredients. And then what they'll do is they will mention something in the beginning of their, setup, if you like. And then they'll come back and they'll fit what they've just described to you earlier on in a completely different setup. And it will make you laugh because you just won't expect it. And so this guy, he says, I went to Mexico, and he said, I thought they were the biggest racist bunch I've ever met down there. And so you're thinking, why is he saying Mexicans are racist? So you got this thinking going on. And then what happened was, he goes and says, yeah, they keep on saying, and Nick, well, I got to make sure I get this right. Okay. So he goes, well, let me see. He goes, maybe I better not say it because I don't want to get it wrong. But anyway, it makes you think of something completely different, and then he gives you the punchline, and you go, "Oh, that's what." So it wasn't as bad as what it was. So that's what comedy is about. Is sort of you lead people down a path thinking that it's something, and then you actually are able to sort of show them a completely different ending that they did not expect. So that's a good way to think of how to. Not that I'm saying I'm a good comedian. That was just what he was explaining how he does. He's been doing it, I guess, for a few years. He's a very successful guy, and he does a very good job, and he's quite funny. So I guess it works for him. And he's got a prison ministry, so he knows a lot of prisoners, they can't get out. So he goes to the prisons and he meets them there. He also goes to the homeless, and he'll reach out to the homeless and do things. They're a really cool guy. So let's see what's going on in the world. I can share my screen with you guys if you're on. Let me see. This, I go to a button over here, and I can go, there we can go. I can go screen one, boing, boing. And that way, if I want to show you something, I can. And a bit like that. So we got, I've just got my logo up there right now, News for Life. Got to move this over here so you can see. The only thing is I can't see what you can see. I'm running out of real estate. So, because I've got to have, so I've got to be able to see what's going on. So if you go to YouTube, you can follow us there, and Messianic Lamb Radio on YouTube. Mark has posted a link there for you all, so you can go click that. And then I'm showing you my screen so you can actually see what's going on here. So I do have this up here, so I can see that you can see News for Life, so that's cool. That's here. I wonder if you can see my mouse, though. I don't really see my mouse on there. All right. So I've got a little PowerPoint here. Let me see. Oh yeah, that's this here. Man. So what I'll do is I'll get a little bit more practice next time, and we'll be able to just flick through this pretty neat. So here we go here. Um, how's that? Pretty cool. So we got this here, and we got this. All right. And so I don't know if any of you ever do this, but you've all got your local senators in your state where you come from. And I like to, if there is an important issue that's being, before the Senate, then I like to call them up and give them a little direction. Well, with the Kavanaugh hearing, we had some opportunities going on there. And so I wanted to send my senator, and I've got a couple, but I chose to send an email to Lindsey Graham. So, Lindsey Graham, as most of you know, is a bit of a wild card. And he really came out on this Lindsey Graham issue. Now, look, you don't have to agree with me because what I do is I bring you the true news, what's really happening to the best of my knowledge, and then I give you my opinions, which they're just my opinions. Okay, so you're welcome to disagree with me, and we can have a conversation about different views of how I see things. But Lindsey Graham is not one of my favorite senators for sure. And so I wanted to, have a little say in what should be going on with Kavanaugh. And I mentioned this before on the radio program is that I don't believe that, I would never have chosen Kavanaugh because he goes way back to the Bush era. He actually helped to create the Patriot Act. I don't know if you're aware of that. And to me, that's the most unconstitutional um, act that probably the Congress has ever passed. Now you might say, well, Rick, we need to protect ourselves from these Muslims. Hey, did you know that like over 100 years ago, and it's probably closer to 200 years ago, we had an issue with the Muslims a long time ago. And so there is laws already on our books to deal with them. It's over 100 years. So there is already laws on our books. So we really don't need to keep making new laws. They do make new laws for several reasons, and some of them are not always so, let me say, constitutional. Okay. So that's my view on it. Okay. So there's a lot of times we're doing stuff that we really don't need to do. So, anyway, see, he was involved with that, Kavanaugh was. And then also, he was a good buddy of George Bush. In fact, probably many of you do not know this, but George Bush himself, the junior, right? He got on the phone and he was calling people to try to help any way he could to make sure that his guy got in on the Supreme Court. Now, let me ask you this. Does any of you know how many Bible believers we have on the Supreme Court? We now have 9 justices again. We had 8 after Kennedy stepped down. Does anyone know how many we have on the Supreme Court that are Bible believers? I'd like to know what your thoughts are there, because the thing is, like a lot of times that people that think that what's going on is that that they're well, that we just got the best guys we could pick. Well, strangely enough, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh are both Catholics, and that the other justices on the court, none of them are Bible believers, not even one. And well, unless you consider, Catholics, there's a couple of Jewish ones on there, and they're Catholic ones, and so a lot of the Catholics are Jesuit, so they go to what's called Georgetown University, and was that what they call it? Georgetown University, and that's the Jesuit college. That's like one of the elite colleges where the Jesuits go. And so George Bush went there. He was a member of the fraternity, what they call Skull and Bones. So that's what you'll find there is that they do all these sort of like secret society things at these elite colleges, and I would have liked to see a Bible believer go up there, at least a Christian of some kind. That would be a welcome change. And I don't know when the last time there was one up there. Perhaps there was. I just don't know of any in recent history. And so that was what I would have chosen if I had a choice. Anyway, getting back to this Lindsey Graham message that I sent to Lindsey Graham is that I thought of, the way they were handling it wasn't right. So let me just go through with you what I said to Lindsey Graham, okay? So this is the email. So let me go set this up so you can see. So this is what I said to him this September 28th. And I sent it to him. By the way, he did respond to me. I'm going to show you what his response was. So I said to him, and I probably could have worded this better. I didn't really sit down and think, gave it a whole lot of thought. But I said to him, I said, listen, I said, you make a straw man argument. The GOP permitted a woman to be heard while knowing that it is a case that say, like, if it was in a court case, it would have been dismissed for lack of corroborating evidence. All the attorneys know this, yet you invited her to speak. Why? So you can complain how stupid the Dems are? Because if you remember, Lindsey Graham was really angry. Some people say they've never seen him that animated in his entire political career. So that's how upset he was. I said, the circus happened, and he called it a circus. The circus happened because you allowed it when it should never have seen the light of day. Or maybe you did it so you could be seen while all the time you knew what was that this should never have had 5 minutes, let alone dominated the news for 3 weeks. I believe it just went on week after week, and it was just so awful. I love listening to talk shows. I couldn't listen to them. I had to keep turning it off. I'd say, well, so then I go to YouTube, listen to some there, or just listen to some music. But I wasn't going to listen to Kavanaugh every day. So that was just way too much. So anyway, so that's what I did. So I sent him that letter. I saying basically what they did was, it was a little sort of strange, because here he is claiming that, this is the most disastrous thing that he's ever seen in his political career. Well, who's in charge of this committee? Well, Grassley was, and he's a Republican, and it's dominated by the Republicans because they control the Senate. And so they control this steering committee that has to be charged with, the investigating to see if he can be confirmed for the Supreme Court justice. So they decide what to do. So this was the Republicans' call. And then so when the Democrats demand that she should be heard, and then the Republicans go along with it when they know all along that this is unconstitutional. And my basis for this, just so you can hear me out here, is that aren't we innocent until proven guilty? And if we're innocent until proven guilty, then why are they even allowed to attack Kavanaugh without, a valid cause of action? So in other words, nobody can just walk into a court and just throw out some accusations and the judges say, okay, well, let's have a hearing on this. No, if it doesn't meet the criteria of a valid cause of action, all you do is, if it's a charge against you, all you do is you just say motion for dismissal, and the judge goes, yeah, I don't see anything here, and he'll dismiss it. Won't even get heard. Won't even get to court. It won't even get to first base. Why? Because you're innocent until proven guilty. And if they have no evidence against you, then they can't even bring it into a court. And so if you're just making a claim against your neighbor and you have no evidence against him, say he stole your car, or he stole your baseball bat, or whatever, you have to have some type of evidence. So those police will say, well, I can't take any action unless you can show me a photo or a video or something, or you know that he's got it. I need something to go on. And otherwise they can't get a warrant to even search his house, because they go to a judge to get a warrant, and the judge will say, well, what evidence do you have? You've seen these police shows. And on these police shows, the judge is gonna say, what evidence do you have? And then if you go, well, I don't really have any evidence, so the judge is gonna go, well, okay, there's not much I can do. So so he's not going to give you the warrant. So same with Kavanaugh. This lady comes forward, which is totally political. You don't have to have too many smarts to know that this woman is being absolutely 100% political. She's not, she could have come up with this 36 years ago, but she never did. The other thing is, if you've been violated, which she claims that's what she was violated. Well, she was sexually violated. Well, then you go to the police. You don't go to the Senate. I've never heard of anybody say, oh, this person abused me, and you run to your nearest Senate. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You can't get justice at the Senate. You have to get justice in a court of law. You take it to the police, and you file a police report. She didn't do that. Well, right there, it's just political. It's purely 100% political. If she would have made a claim at the police station, give them evidence, and said, hey, this is what happened, then yes, okay. Then you would have a valid cause of action to go on. So that's my whole point here, is that I don't even really care for the guy, but in this country, we're not a democracy. It's not. If you have enough people that say, oh, we have to have her heard, therefore you hear it. No, that we're not a democracy. We're a republic. So in a republic, we're based on laws, and you have protections. You just can't be accused falsely. The Bible says you can't be accused falsely. The Bible says you have to have 2 or 3 witnesses. Our Constitution says you've got to have witnesses. You got to have corroborating evidence. So that's what all I was saying to Lindsay, is that why do you complain about the circus when you're in charge of this committee to hear and scrutinize the candidate? And then you allow a circus to go on for weeks and weeks, days after days after days, when you could have shut it down, said, okay, we'll be happy to hear your cause if you have corroborating evidence. She lists, 3 or 4 or 5 people or so. And every single one of those people that she lists, she actually, none of them were willing to corroborate her story. Now somebody's lying, and it's most likely her, because if she was telling the truth, you would think out of 4 or 5 people, you would have had 1 or 2 or 3 that would have said, yes, she's right. She didn't have 1. Okay, so no one would corroborate her story. We'll get into that a little bit, but I don't want to spend too much time on this, because it really made me sick listening to this day after day, and so I don't want to bore you with it either. But anyway, so take a look. So this is what I sent Lindsey Graham, and this is what this is what he said to me in response. Was he says, let me see here. I have to go to the so I have to go bring that up for you so you can take a look at it. So there's the response that he sent me today. I just got this in the mail today. So he goes, thank you, and that. Anyway, so he gets to he said, Justice Kavanaugh is one of the most highly qualified judges ever nominated to serve on the Supreme Court. And he might be, quite a well-studied and got a great record in the court. And he's got a very long record. I think he's been on the second highest court of the land for a circuit court for quite some time. So he's got lots of case studies. And if you notice, the Democrats never, ever brought any real charges that he's a bad judge because of he ruled on this way, or he ruled on this that way. They had nothing of consequence. Not once did I hear them give a valid reason why and not one of them were willing to support him or vote for him And when Republicans get, say, like a candidate, say under Obama, and he brings one forward, then they just make sure that, to the best of their knowledge, that they do know what they're doing. And then they say, well, the people elected Obama president, and he's allowed to choose his guy, whether we like him or her or not. It's his prerogative to bring somebody forward. So then Obama brings somebody forward, and we check it out, make sure, yes, they've got a record. We can see that they've been doing their job to the best we know. It's reasonable enough. We don't have any cause of concern that they're going to be anti-American or anti-constitutional. So if they did feel that, that would be a valid reason not to vote for them. But if they can't see anything like that, it doesn't mean that they could probably read into it, but they can't really read into things and say, oh, well, we're not going to vote for you. They don't have any real hard grounds for doing that. But anyway, I'm just saying the Republicans normally just vote for them because it's really the prerogative of the sitting president. Well, Trump is president right now, and the American people put him in. And so therefore, it's his prerogative who he wants to bring forward. He chose Kavanaugh. So unless they have a real strong academic reason why he should not be appointed as justice, then they need to really vote for him. So this is what he said. So Lindsey Graham says, during the 11th hour, the confirmation process came under a new scrutiny with the surfacing of previous unreported allegations that Dr. Christine Blasey Ford deserved to be and was heard. So he says right there that she deserved to be and was heard. And then he goes on to say, the Senate paused, allowing the FBI to further investigate it after they first spent about a few days doing it. And neither the Senate nor the FBI found further corroborating evidence of these allegations. Allegations of misconduct by a nominee have to be viewed through a logical, constitutionally sound process. The rule of law presumes all Americans innocent until proven guilty. This standard embodies the very liberty of our country was founded upon. Unfairly destroying the Judge Kavanaugh's life under these circumstances would not advance any just cause, but would erode constitutional principles that protect every American. That is brilliant. That's actually what I said to him. So either this guy, Lindsey Graham, must be running for, like, some people think maybe he's trying to run for attorney general, because he's been a senator all these years. He might want a change of job. And so he's going to try to come across as some constitutional, solid core, as constitutional and American as possible, because, his voting record hasn't been very stellar over the last many years that he's been there. And in fact, if you know his record, he often sided with John McCain. And as soon as John McCain was about finished, he started to side with Trump. John McCain was totally against Trump, and we would have absolutely voted Obamacare out except for one person, and that was John McCain. John McCain stood in the way of having Obamacare removed. And Lindsey Graham was his buddy. He stood up for him. And so this is very surprising. That's why I want you to see this. It's good that you're able to see this, because if you're tuned in and you can see this on YouTube, you can see this on here. This is Lindsey Graham's response, and I just sent it to me today. And he gave a very, very good response. The only thing is, it's a little putting the cart before the horse, because if he really believed this, why wasn't he urging his fellow Republicans not to even give her a hearing? And why does he say in the first paragraph that she deserved a hearing? That's what it says right there. Blasey Ford deserved to be heard. Well, no. If she had corroborated evidence, then you can say, yes, we'll hear you, but we will not hear you until you bring us corroborating evidence. If you don't have it, this is not a valid cause to bring against Kavanaugh. So that's what he knows the law. That's what I was blasting him for. I said, you know the law. You're all attorneys. You know the law. So don't act like, oh, you're shocked that there's a circus going. There's a circus going on because you permitted it. You know the Constitution does not permit this, yet you permitted a circus. Why? The Democrats will go for a circus, but that's no excuse for you to go for a circus because you know the Constitution. Democrats could care less about the Constitution for the most part. They only call it up when it suits them if they're going to win them a vote or two. But so the Republicans should have known better, and they entertained her total scam of an accusation, and it was unfounded. The FBI came back with the same conclusion. What the commission heard was that there was no evidence to support her accusations. Well, I don't know if you know about this, but if the more you look into her background, she comes from a university in California. I don't remember all the details, but so, and I'm not going to bore you to death with all of it either. So I'll just give you the highlights, okay? Her father also worked at this college, and she's also sitting on the board, I believe. So I don't have all the facts. So, but I'm just saying in general, this is what I heard, and it sounds very plausible. She's like involved with a company that makes an abortion pill. Okay, so if Kavanaugh is going to be like a pro-life candidate, well, then she's politically got all the motives, to try to interfere for very strong political motives and financial incentives. So that's even more reason to say, hey, you can't hold up our approval process for Kavanaugh for 1 minute unless you can show us some solid evidence. Well, so that's that's one thing that's there. And then also there was another professor that was involved with MK Ultra and the CIA and brainwashing techniques, and her ex-boyfriend said that she even helped one student pass a lie detector test. Her lie detector test that she supposedly did only asked 2 questions. None of them had anything to do with Kavanaugh. So how in the world that's supposed to prove anything? I don't know. Also, she refused to allow the committee to even view her, the doctor, I guess, the psychologist that did the evaluations on her several years ago when this supposedly happened. So they were not allowed to see any of the notes. I wonder why. Because it had nothing to do with Kavanaugh. That's why. And so she was trying to make this big story. So this is my bottom line thinking on her, on this woman, is that she is she's a professional actor. She's a psychologist expert, and she knows everything, like how to get people to agree with you, and working with the CIA. I mean, that's what they were doing. They were getting people to do what they wanted, so they could have mind control over people. She was involved with that. Well, at the university, that's where one of the professors was that was working on it. And then her ex-boyfriend had said that she assisted somebody to pass a lie detector test. So, she was definitely involved with that. And then also they scrubbed her social media. So there was no video anywhere on YouTube or on Facebook. They scrubbed it. It disappeared. It was there and it was gone. So why would they clean up her record, except that that Bezos and YouTube and Twitter and they're all owned, Facebook, by these liberals. And they did everything possible to clean up her history so that there would be nothing there for any of the conservatives to go after her on. So she was cleaned up very well. And then she came in, and then she sounded like the pretty young girl that was a victim. And they did like body language techniques. There was one video that talked about her body language. I mean, I listened to it for about 10 seconds and I turned it off. I couldn't stand it because I knew the voice that she was using was not her normal voice, and she's trying to sound like a little child. Really, really hideous, from my perspective. So anyway, so that's I just wanted to share that with you because you don't really hear that out in the news. By the way, of all the news channels I listen to, and I listen to say TalkStream Live, and they have maybe I don't know 20 or 30 different talk shows on there, and I would flick through Kavanaugh, flick through another one Kavanaugh, and it was just sickening. So I just turned it off. But I did find one program that actually shared some of the things I shared with you. Uh, so so I'm not the only one who sees it from this perspective, and there's a few others out there, but the vast majority weren't. Everybody, including Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh, they all said she had a right to be heard. And what's worse than anything is Trump was saying she had a right to be heard. Well, if you know the Constitution, you would not agree with that. You definitely could not agree with that. If she had a witness, if she had evidence, a photograph or something, a police report, if there's no police report, there's no case. So, unfortunately, this should never have been heard, and people should know better. And if you're bringing this case, she brought this case in front of all these attorneys. They're all attorneys in there, and she pulled it off. She got heard illegally, unconstitutionally, and she still got heard. Now she didn't win. In fact, and this is the good news. Talk about seeing a silver lining behind all this bad news. So here's the silver lining. The silver lining is that the Democrats were sure, with the midterms around the corner, the Democrats were sure of one thing, is that this Me Too movement, by the way, there's some horrible news coming out, is that Hillary and Bill are going to make a tour of the United States in the next few weeks before the midterms, promoting the Me Too movement. If you can't see the irony there, I don't know. That is hilarious that they would be out there promoting this. Absolutely crazy. I know a few more people have joined us just recently. So this is a brand new show. This is News for Life. And we are doing a Thursday night program. In case you're not aware, you might have tuned in to listen to some music. But we are actually also broadcasting on YouTube. So you can find the link, and Mark's put up the link for us. And so you can go to Facebook, you can go to the radio, Messianic Lamb Radio, and you'll see the link there. You can pull us up there. And I am showing you my desktop so you can actually see me, or you can see some of the things that I'm going to show you. And we'll go through some of the latest news in that. So thank you for joining us. And of course, this will be available for you to replay because, some people, they might not be able to get a chance to listen to this till the weekend. So they can pull it up, or sometimes, you can go to also News for Life Facebook page, because the Facebook page at News for Life has a lot of these news items there. And I'll just touch on a few things. And if you want to look into them further, you'll see the whole video there and the whole story behind what I'm talking about. We'll be talking about different news stories through the night. And what's good about this Thursday night program is I'm not limited by the time like I am on a Friday morning, where I only got like a bit over an hour. And so often I'm like getting through perhaps about half of what I'm trying to share. And I feel like I'm being rushed all the time. And so this is much better. And if you like, we're going to have it so that you can actually join in the chat, because I'm not real familiar with this. I'm just learning how to do it and stuff. But say like I'll check back during the week and see if you have any questions. You can post your questions there on YouTube, and we can get back to you with that. Or if you've got some topics you like to talk about, you can also post them on the News for Life Facebook page. If you see some really good news stories, post them there. If you got some good questions, post them there. On that News for Life Facebook page, you'll see news stories there that you're not going to see like on your regular news programs. I'll be talking about what's happening around the world. For instance, what's going on right now. Unfortunately, in Israel tonight, there was another stabbing in Jerusalem. and I posted that on my Facebook page. We might have a chance to go through that. Also, there appears to be a flotilla of warships off the coast of Venezuela. And it's like they were going to, the United States was planning some military invasion there to do regime change, possibly. So I'm not the only one talking about this, by the way, and so we might discuss that a little bit further, and you'll find that also on my Facebook page, News for Life. And so there's going to be different things there you can follow up with, and you can interact, and you can even be able to call the program on Thursday nights because we got more time, so you can call up and we can discuss any subject you like. So we can talk about health and wellness. Say, if you want to know how to cure a disease, I don't know. Let me just say this: after all what I've studied, I don't know one disease that is not curable. Now, sometimes diseases do cause some physiological damage, and that will maybe not be able to be completely repaired. It should be repairable to some extent, but maybe not 100%. But the body wants to heal itself. God gave us self healing bodies, and we can discuss that. How to cure, say, diabetes. So many people have diabetes. So many people just don't know how to lose 50 pounds or 100 pounds. I just had my friend come over. He's a pilot, and he was training this other guy, and he needed to lose some weight, and he suddenly came here from the Marshall Islands. In the last few months, he put on 60 pounds. So people do that and then think, oh dear, well, how am I going to get rid of it? Well, not everybody knows how to do this. Not that easy, but I can always give you some really good ideas on how to do that, as well as get rid of any other diseases. If you got sick children, I can show you how to cure. Well, I just show you what the nutrition will do to solve the issues, that whatever issues your children might have health wise. Nutrition is just amazing, as well as prayer, because we are spiritual beings and we do have spiritual issues that affect our health. And, that one scripture that Yeshua says when he looks over the people and he saw that they were oppressed and harassed. And isn't that true today? You look at the people around you and say, well, there is some oppression and harassment going on. And so there's a lot of need. And he also said that healing is the children's bread. How often do you have bread? Yeah, every day. Well, so healing should be part of our everyday experience. By the way, do you know every night you go to sleep, your body heals itself? So you have antioxidants. So when you work, it's an oxidative process when you exercise and flex your muscles. And so when you go to bed at night, your body's using antioxidants to repair the damage that you created. And that whole process is a good process. That's not bad news. That's the way God made us. So he made us so that when we burn up energy, we're creating we're doing an oxidative process, and we're sleeping. That's why sleep is so critically important. So anyway, so there's health. We can also talk about gardening. If there's different things that you might want to talk about, say if you want to grow your own food, say you like to live out in the country, get away from the city and just live off the land. We could talk about that. I've got some ideas so that you can grow a garden, a vegetable garden, and grow all the food just about. You'll still need to get some things, of course, but you can grow the bulk of your food in your backyard. And I can show you how to do that with about 80% less water and about, I would say, at least 70% or 80% less sweat. Yes, we still have to do it by the sweat of our brow. You cannot escape that. But why do 4 or 5 times the amount of hard work that you have to? Why not do it the easy way? So there's that we can talk about. So News for Life has a very expansive subject base, not just politics, although, we're in this period of time less than 4 weeks away from the midterms. So I'm thinking, look, this is a very important. So the last few weeks, I've been focusing on politics more than normal. I think after the midterms, we may not talk about politics so much, you know. So, and then of course there's finance. Well, there's um, there's always something happening in the financial world, and that's quite separate to politics and everything else. So there's another subject that you might have. You might want to know about cryptocurrencies and what they are. Is the dollar going to crash? Are we doing well economically from a financial perspective, or are we drowning in debt? What do you think about our FRNs, Federal Reserve Notes? Did you know that that's what they're called? And did you know that there is no money? We could talk about all of that, of course. We can talk about all different things. So, anyway, so this is why I sent this email to getting back to this that you can see on your screen on YouTube uh, is this email that I sent to Senator Lindsey Graham, and I wanted you to see that response because it's a brilliant response. The only thing is he didn't excuse himself why they didn't respond in the way he answered this. The second half of this response is brilliant. He said that, yeah, logically, constitutionally, we have a sound process. The rule of law presumes all Americans innocent until proven guilty. The standard embodies the very liberty of our country was founded upon. Unfairly destroying the judge cabinet. Well, why didn't they all act like that? Why didn't they say, sorry, Democrats, but look, in America, we are a republic. We have laws. We protect people from their personal privacy. Unless you have a valid cause of action, you cannot even ask that question here before this committee. You show me a police report with evidence, then we'll look into it. Otherwise, it's called hearsay. Hearsay is rumors. Courts are not run by rumors, they're run by facts and evidence. The facts and the evidence brought before the court. So there's that. So this here is right near where. Oh, by the way, so the Palestinian, there's a real issue going on. This is in the old city of Jerusalem, and this is in the Arab quarter. And so the Palestinian Authority has just reissued another warning that it's high treason for any Arab to sell their property to anyone who's not an Arab. And so, funny enough, they found out that this organization, um, I've got it on my Facebook, so you can go there later and you can pull up that story there. So, so anyway, so they were saying that it is high treason for you to, sell your house to a Jew in particular, which you can't really blame them, because that's what would happen if the Arabs say if their house is worth $500,000 and Jewish guy is going to pay them, you know, twice the price. How could you say no to that? It's very hard to do. So the PA was reiterating their position. And so if you're found guilty of high treason, I don't think it's going to go too well with you. So then they asked the attorneys involved with the sale of this property if they did it. And they said, no, we didn't do it. And so, and then they asked the people that bought it and they said, no, we haven't sold it to any Jews. So it's really strange how they're all pretending that, no, they didn't do it. No, somebody did. The Arabs sold their house. This house was sold. And now they're all admitting that they were innocent. Of course they are, because they got paid a lot of money, undoubtedly. So that's a story there that I've got there on the Facebook. So I wanted you to see that. And I can actually pull up the Facebook over here, and we can see what's going on there with some of the news as well. This is quite disturbing. And I'm going to make this big so you can see it. Okay. Whoops. Well, okay. All right. So now, uh, so here we have, here's a story which is this is just out from tonight. And it's no surprise that Moscow recalls ambassador. Russia will lash out against any new sanctions, say experts. And I did mention this before, is that in the middle of last month, that Russia and China did this massive exercise. By the way, do you know that of all the exercises America's ever done with NATO or anybody, the most troops we've ever used was about 30,000 troops. And we're going to do one in the future, I think next year, and it's going to involve some 45,000 troops. Well, Russia just did one, and China was involved with it too. They only put in, I think, 3,500 troops. But guess how many troops Russia used in this military exercise? And it was situated in Russia near the border of China. They put in about 300,000 troops in this military exercise. And I don't know all the numbers. They have listed all the numbers of tanks and trucks and, 300,000 soldiers. That's a lot. And and they did it in an area that was very similar to the terrain that would be found in the Middle East, say for instance like Syria. So so you've got to understand that's probably the biggest military exercise, and I also mentioned they did the biggest naval exercise off the coast of Syria just a couple weeks before that. So they've been practicing, and then last year, late last year, they had I think a few million, I think about 3 million people involved with a drill for a nuclear attack. So they all had to go into their dugout and bomb shelters in case there's a nuclear attack. They have the drill. Well, this is what you do. You'll hear the sirens. You'll all go take protections. They did this drill, and about St. Petersburg and Moscow and a few big cities were involved with it, and involving several million people. I'm just sharing this with you because just letting you know they take security. We've never done that. In fact, did any of you get that message from the president a few days ago? I think it was last week Tuesday, last week Wednesday actually. I got a I actually got last week Wednesday. I got a message from the president on my cell phone. It says you don't have to do anything. This is just a test. And FEMA was behind it. What they wanted to do was they wanted to see what happens if there's a situation that arises where FEMA or the executive branch of the United States, namely Trump, needs to get a message. See, if you can't rely on the media, the mainstream news with all their fake news, if you give them a message, are they going to convey it the way you want it? Maybe not. We've got a record now where it's something like 91% of the news that they talk about Trump is negative, 91 or 92%. That means only 8% of the time they're talking about something good. Well, that is a huge skew, and they're extremely biased. Okay, so they're not really presenting. Journalism has lost its way, and so there's that issue. So that's why he put out this emergency alert using FEMA and the cell phones. This was to cell phones only. Just about everybody has a cell phone, and they said it was largely successful. And about some, I believe, over 70% of people received it. They had some issues, of course, where there were some that didn't. So in the group that I was with, there was about, I would say, probably about 70% that did, something like maybe 7 or 8 out of 10 said they did get the message, and a few didn't. But anyway, I did. But so anyway, some people were afraid. Oh, this is terrible because FEMA's going to know where you are. Because as soon as you get a ping on your phone, look, there NSA is watching us 24/7. If you've got a TV, if you've got any type of electronics, they've got the Internet of Things coming. They're going to have your stove, your fridge, your microwave. They're all going to be having chips in them, even if they're turned off, they're not being used. They can be listening. They can be what they want to do is they want to find out what you buy, what you use, what you're consuming. They want to know everything about you, and this all stems from China. I don't know if you know this, but in the last 30 years, the New World Order was planning to move their headquarters from the United States to China. And that's why China has been doing exceptionally well the last 30 years. So Trump came in and said, no, thank you. I'm not going to learn Chinese, and I'm going to be quite happy to make America great again after they spent 30 years destroying this country with NAFTA and one program after the other, so that we would not have cotton mills here, so that we would have no steel mills here. And didn't you hear in the fake news how they said, oh, that's an abuse because Trump had claimed that the steel mills were national security, and that's why he was using tariffs against the nations on the basis of national security? Because if it's national security, they can't stop him. Well, that's what he said it was, and if he says it is, then they would have to prove that it's not. But look at the fact here. The fact is this: is that if if we can't manufacture our own defensive systems, whether it be ships or boats or trucks or whatever, airplanes, and we have to rely on steel and other products coming from overseas, well, they can purposely make them weak. Like, Chinese sends you stuff that maybe lasts a few months, and you got some American product that should last you 10 years. Hopefully that's the case. So, anyway, so if that's the case, then it is national security because you don't know if they're purposely going to be making things not as good as they could, because they might have, ulterior motives. Instead of trying to give us the good things so we can build our ships and our airplanes and everything and our military hardware and weapons and guns and missiles with good quality materials, they could be compromising them. They could be saving money, charging us the maximum for a top dollar product when it's really just a cheap knockoff. Well, that would compromise national security. In this case, Trump was absolutely right, and he was not stretching the truth at all. And therefore, he had every right to put tariffs on China from dumping their excess steel on the United States market. Because what that was doing, it was killing off our steel mills. And do you think that might have been strategic? Do you think the Chinese might have been doing that on purpose? And they might have been thinking, hey, we'll just run our factories and produce a whole bunch extra, and whatever we don't need, we'll just dump it in America, because that way they'll go bust and then we'll be the only ones left making steel. So that the Chinese government would be subsidizing the Chinese steel that they were dumping here. Well, Trump is a business. That's why it's not a bad idea to have a businessman as a president, because he looks at things from that perspective and he goes, hey, this is not good. This is really not good. And he said, I'm going to put a stop to it. And nobody, I'm pretty sure they all try to stop him, and he's not going to buy it. He says, oh no, we're not going to tolerate that anymore. And so that's been very good. But this story here that I just pulled up, I hope you can see it. I can blow it up a little bigger if you like. Okay, so there we go. Because, say on your screen, especially if you're on a small screen, it might be hard to see. So this way it's nice and big for you to see what's going on here. This is just out the news today. What's this here? I don't know what that is. Okay, so anyway, so this is what it says, is that Washington's latest sanctions have left no room for a constructive response from Moscow. Analysts explain, but opinions differ widely on how much the measures will affect relations between the two countries, between the United States and Russia. All interviewed by RT railed against the framing of the sanctions, nominally prompted by the alleged use of chemical weapons against the Skripals. So the Skripals in the UK, which was back in March, and so I can explain that a little bit. But so Russia will be punished with the first set of measures from August 22nd, and is given 90 days to assure Washington that it will no longer deploy chemical weapons and to open up its chemical production factories to international inspectors. One problem: Russia denies that it has used the chemical weapons in the first place and says that it had already disposed of its stockpile in accordance with international treaties. And then this would have been years ago. Got to understand that after uh, the Iron Wall came down and communism collapsed in Russia, and basically they almost went broke. And so they restructured. They got a new constitution. And they really changed a lot of things. They're not the same. A lot of people say that they just reinvented themselves. They're not. It's a totally different country. Right now, in all the schools in Russia, they have to teach the Bible. In America, um, if some schools did that, there would be a lot of trouble. But in Russia, they all have to teach the Bible. It's mandatory. So, so to use the proverbial example, the U.S. is asking Russia, "When will you finally stop beating your wife?" There's no good answer to that question. Um, Russia can't admit what it hasn't done. It's as if the U.S. is asking Russia, "Show us your Yeti, and if you don't, we'll punish you." Right? Well, there's literally no facilities even to show. Vladimir Kornilov, a political analyst for RA News Agency, told RT. So look, I don't know what your views are of Russia, but I'm telling you, I'm really, uh, say, well, of course, we got to have our eyes wide open, and we don't want to just go in there blindly, and we got to be able to, try to work with them the best way we can, and that's this, are really, well, between Russia and China. China is our real enemy. Russia isn't. So anyway, so this is very important. And oh, by the way, when you go back to the election of 2016, Trump was saying he wanted to get along with Russia. And so that was his mandate. A lot of people voted him in because he wanted to get along with Russia. That's what American people wanted. That's one of the things that he ran on. And it's one of the things that he has absolutely let the American people down, because he has put more sanctions on Russia than Obama ever did. He's been a huge obstacle. And when I say he, Trump, it's really his cabinet that's doing it. You've got John Bolton, and you've got Mike Pompeo. You had others before him, and you've got others beneath these guys, like Mnuchin. He's a Wall Street Goldman Sachs guy, and they were the ones that were all behind this pro-China policy, and which is really, that's really treason, because they were really giving preference to Chinese jobs over American jobs, and they couldn't care less. If last, oh man, I got to play this for you. It's one of my favorite things. Is is what Obama said. Um, so let me see if I can get that for you. So So this is a serious issue, and I would really love to see this done better. And I don't know if I can get this working. Oh, here. Yes, looks like this is it. So, um, so this is a little tricky. Oh, I know where it is. This is it here. Whoops. Mm-mm. I don't know what happened there, but they all lit up when I try to click on them. But what I was going to do is let you listen to this. This is really the heart of Obama, is that he had no clue. I sometimes ask, when I meet some black people, I say, what has Obama done for blacks? In 8 years that he was in office, there was one president who really could have done a lot for black people. You would have thought it would have been Obama. And then, Trump has been in office for less than 2 years, basically just 1 year. And the black unemployment is doing so much better than anyone has ever dreamed. In fact, it's the best in history. And it was the unemployment which causes a lot of problems. If people are, idle hands cause a lot of mischief. So if they're working, they get, they feel better about themselves. And wow. So anyway, yeah. So this is really important. They've got them working because they get what do you call that? They got their self esteem working. They're making money. They feel like they got some self worth because if they're unemployed and they can't get a job anywhere, that's really demoralizing. I don't know if any of you have been unemployed for a long time, but I can't imagine how demoralizing that must be for a man not to be able to work. And so they've just really struggled that sector in the workforce. The black youth unemployment was super super high, and Obama never did anything about it. In fact, uh, if I can play this for you, I'll let you hear it. But you can hear it straight out of his mouth. Is he doesn't. He says those jobs are not coming back because the policy of the United States was that the jobs would be exported to Mexico and to China and to other countries. That was their policy. So he was really serious when he said that those jobs are not coming back. That is a pretty serious thing, and pretty sad. That was actually his view. And when you think about it, he was handing money out. If you were a union or a company that was pro Islam or Democrat, you got millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, and so that was just shocking. You would just never, if you were trying to find all the things that he did that were, say, unconstitutional or things that were criminally or treasonous, I don't think you'd ever finish. I mean, he did so much. Right before he left, if you remember, he suddenly opened up all the agencies, some 17 agencies, and okay, okay. So I'll just finish this little bit here. So, because I had a little issue here with my program, but we could do that on the next show. But so I just wanted to wrap this up, and it's getting a bit late. So that anyway, so it was just just what I was saying is that yeah, he tried to weaponize the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, and he gave them all top level clearance on purpose, and that is just that is that is like unheard of. It's never ever been done before. And he puts out this executive order, and I believe it was around about the 10th of January, right before he left the White House, and that's what he did. So I was just going to play one, just the top one there. It's called "Rush Obama's Magic Wand," and when I moved them over, they all moved over to the playlist, and so I tried to delete them. So that's why I hit delete for all of them. But anyway, don't worry. I'll play that one again. That's one of my favorite. It's just good to hear sometimes straight out the horse's mouth, some of the crazy things that they were up to. It's really, really quite shocking. Oh, okay. So now I got this working, so I can let this play. This is just a really short clip. Let me go play this, and then we'll wrap the show up. All right.
2, 1,
Yes.
2.
It was for freedom Christ set us free now.
Stand fast in liberty.
It was for freedom Christ set us free now.
Turn your back on slavery.
This one?
I wanna believe all that you
It was
say.
for freedom Christ set us free now.
Stand fast in liberty.
It was for freedom Christ set us free now.
Turn your back on slavery.
Audio was from Rush Limbaugh and it had Obama on there. That's all I wanted to play.
From pain and
1 minute clip.
misery.
But I'll play that next time if it's not queued up. So I thought it was all queued up, ready to go. When I hit play, it didn't want to play. So okay, so we'll wrap it up and tune in next time. Okay, no problem.